Chafing Armor Podcast, Episode 16. Mind Flayers Suck. Welcome back to the Chafing Armor Podcast. I'm your host and probably legal Dungeon Master, Michael Corley. Playing with me tonight is James. James, tell everyone who you are playing.
I am playing Penton Chalice, who is a spell scale sorcerer. Now level 3, yay!
Woohoo! Now it's your grocer's freezer. And we also have Lee. Lee, tell everyone who you are playing.
G'day, I'm Lee. I'm playing Osukai, the shifter ranger from the Eldeen Reaches. Also level
Wonderful. 3. Also level 3. We're going to get to that in a little bit. This will be fun. I want you all to tell about your level 3 right before I murder you all. And Dare, tell everyone about your character.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dare, and I'll be playing Tix Birchmanson, the gnome cleric from the forest.
Wonderful. And finally, but not least, we have Izzy. Izzy, tell everyone who you are playing.
I'm playing Morezi Mugra, the half-orc barbarian who is also level 3.
Wonderful. And as you have all referenced, you have all leveled up. And in fact, you all had leveled up before, but I believe only Penton, and you can certainly review it briefly as well, have been able to tell everyone about it. So let's start in the same order. Very quickly, James, tell everyone what has changed with your character at level 3.
All right, well, let's see. I've added a spell to my repertoire. I have gained an armor class point from my Vow of Poverty, as well as now being able to endure elements, which means I am happy as a clam anywhere between negative 40 and up to 150 degrees. So I no longer sweat or shiver.
You are good to go. It's like you're always just come out of an REI store and you're just fully ready to go. So let's move forward to Lee. Lee, tell everyone what you have advanced, what Osukai has advanced with at level 3.
Okay. Osukai has gained a healing factor. He can now heal a certain amount of hit points based on his character level whenever he ends shifting. He also gained, as a bonus feat for being a ranger, he gained the endurance, which gives him certain bonuses to certain checks, such as +4 to swimming, for non-lethal damage, constitution checks for running, and basically just all-around hardiness in terms of stamina and such like that, as well as the usual things that come with being a shifter.
He is a tough boy. And Dare, what has changed with our lovable Tix?
Well, our little stoic Tix has gained a spell and has some extra power of turning undead, and his spells are more effective.
You have to keep that in mind for this upcoming adventure. And finally, Izzy, tell everyone what's changed with Morezi.
I'm not entirely sure that a lot has changed. Probably that's only because I haven't been paying enough attention to the player's handbook. I think she gained a +2 on fortitude saves because of a feat.
And I believe you've also gained a +2 trap sense.
Oh yes, that's kind of important. That she is much better. She has a +1 to sensing things that are imminently dangerous.
Yes, as we have mentioned before, barbarians are a little bit like Spider-Man in that they have a kind of innate danger sense, and that has increased your, of course, hit points, and several of your saving throws have gone up as well. you all are more powerful, which is wonderful because I'm about to kill you all. Our last campaign, the adventurers, except for Penton, adventured down into the Underdark with their mysterious wood elf companion, Zuana. And as they got deeper and deeper, they finally found themselves in a desecrated temple to Loth, the Spider Queen of the Drow. And as you went inside, you found various bodies with parts of their skull missing. And as you came to the near the front of the dark and evil church, you found a creature up there finishing his snack. And as he dropped the now brainless humanoid to the ground, it revealed itself to be a mind flayer. And that is where we open with this campaign.
I want to open somewhere else.
It would be good for you to open just about anywhere else.
That's the last thing we want, is anything to open, especially our skulls.
Exactly. As I showed you in a very crude drawing before I began the campaign, you are in a very long area where the supplicants of Loth would be. And if you think of an old-style church, it's not unlike that. However, instead of an altar at the front, there is a semicircular area that is in the shape of a pentagram. This is not for any satanic reasons, but simply to hold the dark powers that would be released during sacrifice. Each point of the pentagram has a pillar, a long, dark pillar that goes up into the ceiling. And that may come in important later. At 3 points of the inner circle are sacrificial slabs, and you can make out some kind of figure on all of the slabs. You can also see that there is something underneath each of the slabs. This is all just in your quick view, and there's also a shadowy area in the back. In a normal church, this would be where the priest or the preacher would prepare for coming out before, but obviously that's not the case in a dark, evil temple. Now, the Mind Flayer is not terribly far from y'all. He's actually standing just in front of the 3 sacrificial slabs. And he looks up at all of you, and first he speaks in the native tongue of the Mind Flayers, and it is horrifying to hear. If you imagine what it sounds like if 2 squids are fighting each other to the death, that's what the Mind Flayer's native tongue sounds like.
Lord.
And then he seems to kind of realize, oh wait, you can't understand that. And instead of talking himself, you kind of get the idea he probably could. He just reaches up, and the figure in front of him that he just ate rises from the ground, and its eyes lolling backwards, it begins to speak for the Mind Flayer. And it says, "Welcome. I'm so pleased that you accepted my invitation." Does anyone want to say anything?
I want to say a lot of things, but I'm pretty sure all of it would get me in trouble.
He says, "You know, I considered killing the half-breed," and the corpse gestures towards you, Merezi,
Wow.
"when you were in the caverns outside of Spade Glen. But you did not yet have the item I required. No matter. Now you do. And as you can see, I have made this a glorious place for my master." And he raises his hands up, and maybe the light in the room even brightens slightly. And you can see each of the 5 pillars has an animal nailed to the pillar. And Tix, I would like you to make a religion check.
That would be a 16.
A 16 is a good roll. So all of you see when he gestures that at each of these 5 points is a wasp, a giant wasp, by the way, a ferret, a lizard, a spider, and a raven. Some of these creatures are actually still alive and struggling weakly.
Oh.
Yeah,
Raven
it's
better be.
and they are all in either dead or in very dire states. But Tix, with your expansive knowledge of religion, you recognize you're not 100% on all of them with a 16 roll, but you are 100% certain each of these creatures is the avatar or familiar of a god. And so this is a Class A level sacrilege to nail the avatar of a god in another god's temple. And of course, one of them is actually a giant spider. And there's no doubt who that is meant to desecrate, Loth herself. But for certain, you recognize the raven is meant to be an insult to the Raven Queen. And you think that the lizard, who is struggling weakly as its tail has been nailed to this pillar, is from the somewhat obscure god Semuana, who is worshipped by the lizard people, by the lizard men. And so this is incredibly offensive to your eyes. Your particular god does not actually have an animal familiar, but you can imagine how offensive it would be if you found one of them nailed to another god's temple. This is clearly part of some extremely dark magic. And the Mind Flayer turns to all of you and says, "And I want all of you to enjoy the fruits of my labors. But first, let us get down to business." And he holds out his hand and he says, "Give me the rod of Seraphim."
No.
Seems pretty simple, really, doesn't it?
And he actually pauses. He kind of, considers for a moment. This is not a individual who is used to hearing no very often. And he says, "I will ask you one more time. I know that you have the fragment of the rod of Seraphim. Give it to me now." By the way, you don't have it. There's one party member who has always had the rod of Seraphim, and he's not with you right now. That is Penton.
That's me.
Okay. Osakai has no real connections with any of this kind of stuff, but the animals stuck to the wall kind of incense him. He's not very happy. So he is not thinking too straight and is going to counter-intimidate if possible.
Okay.
So
you are welcome to roll for that, and I would also very much like you to describe what your attempts to counter-intimidate the Mind Flayer entail.
Osakai is going to step forward with... Everyone knows what a determined step forward looks like. It's basically that. And he's going to raise himself to his full 6'11" height. Stand feet shoulder width apart, and he's going to speak in a low-ish tone, enough for everyone to hear, that he's not getting anything
Okay.
And I'm going to cast guidance on him, which will give him a +1 on his skill check.
Okay.
That leaves me with a 27.
So you set your feet forward and you step forward and you're full, raise yourself up, which you almost never do, to your full height, and say to this mind flayer, you are not getting anything. And also, as you're doing that, Tix whispers a prayer of guidance, and you all feel it. By the way, you are in a very dark temple. Loth is a very evil god, and on top of that, this temple has been desecrated by even more evil. And so even the small prayer of guidance gives like a relief of the pressure that you are feeling around you. And the mind flayer doesn't react in a way that a normal human would. But what you actually see is the corpse that he is animating and speaking through actually takes a step back. And you realize the corpse is actually slightly levitating off the ground. It's, because its body is no longer really functional. And it actually raises one hand up to its face as if to deflect a blow. And you see the expression on the mind flayer just crunch together, just tighten. It is furious that you revealed this weakness in him, that it instinctively caused its avatar to flinch, essentially. And a normal human would have been absolutely cowed by this. But what you have done is you've made the mind flayer blink. And that is clearly infuriated him.
Okay, so I'm going to continue to press the advantage, and I'm going to hope the rest of the party has something in their sleeves, because I am not stopping. Because if we can get this guy to flinch, then maybe someone will see him flinch and do something. Please, anyone, help! I've made a powerful enemy.
I don't want you to roll for initiative right now because we're not actually in full combat yet.
Okay.
But I do want you to roll for what it is that you're trying to do.
Okay, so I'm going to take another step forward. How long does your guidance last for, Tix?
I believe it's 10 minutes.
Yeah, I believe it's for a little while.
Okay, so I will hopefully still have that +1. I'm going to try and intimidate again, and at the same time... God, I hope this works. I'm going to make some kind of hand gesture at Tix. I'm going to open my hand, and I'm going to make a throwing gesture towards the nearest pillar, while at the same time speaking again to the mind flayer that he is not getting anything from us, and that he should probably leave before things get out of his control.
Okay.
So that's +6, +7.
And +1.
So that's 28.
And at the same time, I cast protection for aid on protection from evil on Osakai.
Okay.
Which gives him +2 to armor class, and protects him from or counters mind control and hedges out elementals and outsiders.
Okay.
Mind control, you say? That's not insignificant in this scenario.
Yes.
So remember that you have that on Osokai, that plus
Okay, so
two
it's
to defend.
Plus 2 to defense. Okay.
Yes. So this mind flayer, he's not an elder mind flayer, but he is a fully mature mind flayer. He is one of the most dangerous creatures that you could encounter. But he seems to come to a realization. And the almost you don't think that he's fully conscious that his avatar is speaking, but the corpse turns to all of you and says, You don't have it. He promised me you would have it. And he reaches forward and slashes downwards. And he actually steps into nothingness. And if Penton were here, he might recognize this as a plane shift. However, he isn't going very far. He reappears about 50 feet behind him in that dark, shadowy area behind the pentagram. And you see the ground begin to shift beneath him, and he slowly begins to sink into the ground. And he says, But don't worry. I have left such delights for you. And as he sinks into the ground, though, Osokai, you are the only one who sees this, because you are the closest of all. You see the tiniest flicker of fear in his eyes. And you think it's because of those intimidates, those two successive intimidates that you made, and perhaps gives you hope for the future that he is not invulnerable. And he is slowly sinking into the soil that's behind him, the shifting, roiling soil that you recognize as not unlike the soil that was in the pit that the Zorn came out of. And he sinks into it and is gone. But even as he sinks into it, as his head fully goes underneath, another figure rises out of the soil, and this figure you recognize, because it is Penton, the Spellscale Sorcerer. And he is coming up almost at the same instant that the Mind Flayer went down. And in fact, you, like Tix, who has more knowledge in the arcane, you realize that this was a very dangerous action, that if it had gone just slightly off, that Penton would have died horribly. But Penton slowly rises out of the soil behind all of you. But between all of you is that pentagram. And on the pentagram are 3 sacrificial slabs. And 3 figures begin to slowly sit up from each. And unfortunately, you recognize all of them. Now, you remember there was a barkeep. His name was Owen the Red. And the barkeep was killed by a demon, a Dybbuk, who had taken over his body and stolen his skin. Now, you assumed that when this happened, the rest of Owen was destroyed. But unfortunately, that is not the case. And what rises up wet and pink and covered in arcane symbols, if you imagine the most unpleasant version of Frankenstein that you can, entirely bereft of skin, augmented and enlarged, but somehow you still recognize it as Owen, rises from the closest pillar. From the closest slab. And next to him, her skin turned a almost dusky brown, the color of earth, and with a slight dark reddish hue, rises his wife. His wife, who, by the way, after the initial incidents at the end, you never saw again. And you assumed that Owen had killed her, which was a reasonable assumption. But her name was Brawin. And she is no longer alive. She snarls at you, and you see the fangs of a vampire. And there is intelligence in her eyes, but there is also a terrible hunger. And finally, pale and ghostly, and somehow more substantial than she was before, the ghost of the daughter rises from the final pillar. Her name was Finna, and she looks so sad, and yet filled with a hunger for the light of the living. And everyone, I need you to roll for initiative.
Oh,
So you're making us fight a zombie, a vampire, and a ghost. What 80s monster
Pretty much.
movie is this?
All of them.
I got a 15.
So, 15 for Morezi,
11 for Tix.
11 for Tix.
16 for Penton.
Penton gets a 16.
And a 9 for Osakai.
Sokai gets a 9. Now let's see how the luck of the Dungeon Master goes this time. Oh, better this time. That is an 18 for Owen the Abomination. Well, technically he's... I can't remember if it's technically an abomination or an aberration, but no, technically he's a flesh golem. Ew.
Oh.
Which is lovely. And that is a 20 for the vampire, Rowan. And the ghost, however, rolls a 1. Perhaps because she is so unwilling to attack you. But before we begin combat, Penton,
Yes.
you get your first real connection back with your raven. And of course, you instantly recognize her. Her right wing has been nailed to a far pillar. And she is weakly struggling. She is absolutely alive and absolutely injured and not doing well. And she sends you empath, that speaking person-to-person connection that you had during your meditation is now gone. But she sends you an image. She sends you an image of a circle. And this circle looks like a bracelet? It looks familiar to you. You've seen it before. In fact, you're almost certain one of the party members has it. And she sends it to you just so clearly, more clearly than she ever has anything else. And that's all she's able to do before combat begins. And of course, she can't do anything during combat because she's nailed to a pillar.
Right.
But we begin with the vampire. She lets out a guttural hiss, and she is clearly driven by an absolute hunger. You don't know, as a vampire, if she is ever actually fed. And Osakai, you're closest. And so she just streaks towards you with her claws out at you. She is trying to slam into you. And she gets a 2. So even with her not insubstantial bonus, that is not going to work against Osakai's armor. And so I'm going to say that you were absolutely ready for her, ready for the combat, and that you simply sidestepped her. But that actually brings us to the aberration. And the aberration is stepping forward, and he is beginning to lumber towards Tix. You don't know if it's because you're holy or just because you were in his line of sight. However, he is slightly out of range. So he is basically just boom, 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 coming towards you. And by the way, he's leaving red footprints as he comes. Yeah, it's very unpleasant.
Flesh golems
And
are not nice.
no, they are not nice. And that actually brings us to Pinton.
Okay. Um, well, I'm trying to assess exactly what's going on here. All I know is that there's three horrific creatures that are rising up as I'm entering the room, so
Mm-hmm.
I don't even have time to respond or say anything to anybody. Although um, the image of the bracelet is foremost in my mind. However,
Yes.
there's a vampire in the room, so I'm going to be casting my protection from evil on myself.
Interesting. I like it.
Also, I have a
So,
question.
mm-hmm.
So the ghost is a ghost. Well, that's
Mm-hmm.
obvious. Aren't ghosts like resistant to melee or whatever?
You do not have a great deal of knowledge in the matter, but you have a general understanding that only magic and special items are able to affect a truly ethereal being. So you suspect that if you just try to swing your halberd at the ghost, it's not going to go well.
Yeah, okay. I think I won't try to face the ghost then.
Well, Morezi has never faced a actual ghost, but she has heard enough stories from her tribe that she has a basic understanding of that.
Yes.
So you cast Protection of Evil from Evil on yourself, Penton?
Correct.
And just one more time, even though we said it earlier, tell everyone what that does for you.
It gains me a +2 on AC and +2 resistance bonus on saves, and it also prevents any kind of mind attack while it's working, and also forces out outsiders, as it were,
Okay?
extraplanar beings and such.
Okay. And now it comes to Morezi. And Morezi, you are readying yourself for battle, and you actually get a mental image in your head. Now, Penton could tell you where this is coming from, but you actually don't know. You just see in your head the image of that bracelet that is in your backpack.
Knew it.
And it is just burning in your image. Like it almost keeps you from attacking. But you see it just super clearly, and you see the image of it sliding onto like a pole or a handle or something like that. But now it is your turn, and you can act as you choose.
Well, I'm gonna say that Marizi takes this thing out. I don't think that's a full action. And
No.
kinda holds it with a firm grip, takes maybe a couple steps forward and waggles it in the general direction of that ghost and that golem and that vampire.
Okay. Now, I'm not going to make you lose your combat action, though the only creature that you'd be close enough to attack this round would be the flesh golem, since it's coming towards you. But you see no actual reaction. They don't actually react to it like, say, the way they might from a holy symbol or something like that.
Okay.
There's no particular reaction.
Then she can fight something. She's gonna slide it on. Let's just say she slides it on her wrist, and
Okay?
comes at the flesh golem with a halberd.
Okay. As you, and I'm going to allow this. This might be a few more actions than I would normally allow, but I'm going to let it go in this case. As you slide it on your wrist, it's actually too small for your wrist to fit easily. You actually feel it change shape. It widens to accept your wrist, and as it comes on your wrist, it tightens, not painfully, but just settles into the right size for your wrist as it comes around your wrist. And now you are attacking the flesh golem with your halberd, and I want you to roll to attack.
I have gotten a 12. Wait. Yes.
And is that your total with your bonus?
My base attack bonus.
Yes.
Okay. So the total is 12.
Yes.
Okay, that is not going to do it, because even though he is a flesh golem, his body has been magically augmented. And you bury your halberd into him, but it does not seem to actually harm him. But it does get his attention away from Tix, so Tix may be appreciative of that.
Always.
And speaking of Tix, it is now your turn.
Okay, I am going to try and turn undead.
That is a really smart move right now.
So I get, I have to roll 2d6 plus my cleric level plus my charisma modifier, which is +2. So it's 11 plus 3 plus 2 is 17. No, 16.
17.
16.
16.
I can do math.
Okay.
Math. Yes.
Math
So
is hard.
That's how many hit dice will be turned by my prayer.
Excellent. The vampire actually has a bonus to resist versus turn undead, but that's enough. That's enough. However, I do want to let you know that while the vampire and the ghost are both affected by your turn, the flesh golem is not. It is not technically undead, even though it's kind of undead. It's not. And so what happens is that both the vampire and the ghost turn from y'all and move back towards the back of the pillars, back into the shadowy corners. And I also want you to tell everyone what is the symbol of your god and what you're holding forward to turn these undead.
I am holding forth a beautiful gold nugget, which is the symbol of Garl Glitter Gold.
So this gold nugget just glimmers in the dark torchlight of this dark temple, and just seems to gleam with its own inner light. And the vampire, and she spider crawls backwards, and she actually goes up one of the pillars slightly, and the ghost just simply lets out a low, and just slowly floats backwards away from your presence. And it actually, so the ghost will not get a turn this turn. And Osokai, that brings it around to you.
Okay, so the closest pillar to me has what on it?
The closest pillar to you has, it actually is, I'm looking at my notes here, it actually has the raven,
Okay.
that is alive.
Okay, so Ozugai is still incensed by the animals stuck to the pillars. Where is the one with the spider on it? And is the spider alive?
That one is actually it's not. It's actually the next closest one to you, because the spider was in the front. There are two that are on either side of the entrance to this pentagram. One of them is the raven, and the other is the spider. So it's within movement distance of you.
Is the spider alive? Can I see?
No, there. If you, I actually won't require a perception check, because I mean, some are moving and some aren't. Now it's possible that some are unconscious, but as far as you could tell, the only two that are alive is the raven and the lizard.
Okay.
The wasp, the ferret, and the spider appear to be dead.
Okay. Well, I can't tell the spider is alive, so that basically puts that out. So I'm going to try and release the raven. Osukai is going to run to the pillar, climb to the raven, and use his Morning Star to... Actually, no. He's going to attempt to yank the nail out of the pillar.
Okay, that is well within your strength to. It's a ugly big nail, but it is still at the end of the day a spike that you believe you could pull out, especially with your strength. I would like you to make a climbing check.
Okay, being a shifter, I get a +2 bonus to climb. Does the protection even doesn't give me anything to skill check?
No.
No. Okay, so that's all well and good. I think I might get rid of this dice. It's rolling too good. That's 27.
So you all see this, that Osokai, in the middle of the battle, he suddenly pivots and runs towards this pillar, and it looks like he just... especially you, Penton, you think that he's somehow cast spider climb on himself, because he just shimmies up the side of this pillar with his fingers almost like claws. And I won't even need, with that such a good roll, I won't even need to make you make the other roll. You just grab the single spike in the raven's right wing and just yank, and it comes clean, and the raven falls into your hand. And it is very badly injured, but it is not dead. And you, Penton, feel of course, because it's incredibly painful when the spike is removed. But of course, that is what needs to happen in order to get your familiar free. And of course, Osokai is not currently aware that this is your familiar.
Right. However, Penton sheds a tear of gratitude.
You could always,
Gotcha.
you could always shout to Osokai to pass it to you or whatever. Let Osokai know that this raven is important to you, because right now he's just trying to rescue the alive ones, because
Right.
he's an animal and he would like animals not to suffer. So at the moment he doesn't know any different for this raven. It was the closest one that looked living. So yeah.
Gotcha. And that will actually bring us around. The vampire is actually scooching up the one of the far pillars. It's actually the one with the wasp on it, and it's just hissing and spitting at y'all. But that actually brings it around to Owen, who has turned his attention to you, Merezi, because you tried to thwack it with your halberd, and he is actually trying to slam into you. And he rolls with a total of 15. Does that beat your armor class?
No, it does not.
Well, you are very lucky, because I assure you, you do not want to be slammed by a flesh golem. And he stumbles forward, but what I'm going to say is that you still had your halberd buried in him, and you're actually able to use it to pivot slightly and pivot him out of the way so that he misses you. And that will bring it to Penton.
All right. Well, since the other two creatures are out of the way at the moment, I think we can focus on the real damage machine in the room, which is the flesh golem. Even I'm going to consider my raven to be in safe hands right now, and use my own hands for magic making, and send a pair of magic missiles the flesh golem's way.
Go for that. Let's see that.
Two, and then I'm going to supercharge it with my my dragon bonus as well. All right, so that's 7, 8, 9, 10 points from the missiles themselves, and another 6, so 16 points.
16 points total.
Yes.
Okay. That is an incredibly effective attack, and you all see the magic missiles light up from the other side of the pentagram. The flesh golem is now in the area outside of the pentagram. He's engaged all of you. And so from across the pentagram, this magic missile lights through and just lights his back on fire. And you actually smell, even from where you are, Penton, just the horrible smell of cooking meat. And it is terrible. And the flesh golem lets out a exactly, because you know what he doesn't like? He doesn't like fire. He's not a fan, and he turns and just gives you a baleful look. But he's far too far away because he's charged these other people, and it actually brings it to you, Merezi.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna hit the big flaming dude again.
Okay.
Let's try this again. 6.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's not going to do it. His thick hide, no matter how skinless it may be, is magically augmented, and it simply fails. Your attack fails against him.
His thick, skinless skin, just no match.
His thick, skinless skin,
No
exactly.
match
Doesn't
for it.
Dungeons and Dragons make a lot of sense? And Tix, it's now your turn.
And I am going to step up and cast Inflict Moderate Wounds on the Flesh Golem.
Now, you have to touch for that, do you not?
I do have to touch for that.
Okay, just an FYI. Go for it.
I do not want to do that roll.
Yeah.
No.
That is a whole 13.
Unfortunately, that is just shy. And perhaps it's the fact that you make this successful touch, but your hand just kind of off his...
Now, touch attacks wouldn't consider like natural armor, for instance, because it's not something that has to go through his hide.
No.
It's just a touch, so it wouldn't consider any kind of natural armor.
Interesting. I like... Go ahead.
It's literally just the base AC.
I like your argument.
Which I happen to look up if you want to know what it is.
Okay, sure.
It's an 8.
What, for a flesh golem?
Yeah, for a touch attack is an 8.
Oh, is it H
Oh,
to do a
sweet.
touch attack? Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, a 13 is not enough with his armor, or with his, non-mystical, weird flesh golem armor. But just to touch him, that is going to succeed, and so I'm going to allow this attack to go through. So roll for damage.
Fantastic. That is 2d8 plus 3.
Ooh, winner.
So that is 10 points of damage.
10 points of damage. So what y'all see is actually he reaches up and touches the flesh golem in the back. And some of you actually saw him do this to the goblin sapper who was outside the inn in the previous episode. He touches the back of the golem, and where he does, it literally turns necrotic and begins to rot. And you actually see like a small section where the abdomen would be just rot away. And you think that this would probably just be straight out fatal to a normal human. But obviously this is not a normal human. But it is terribly damaging to it. You can tell that you've really done some solid damage to it. And it lets out one of those... and turns back towards you, Tix. And now that brings it to Osokai, up on a pillar with a raven.
Okay, so I am... Where is the vampire in concurrence to me? She's on a ledge with the... Or on a pillar with the hornet, which is dead.
Yes, the wasp, yes. And it's actually directly opposite you. So
That's fine.
you wouldn't be able to, like, say, jump over there. Or if you did, it would be a Herculean effort. I wouldn't recommend it.
I'm not going to try that. I just want to know where she was at this point.
Sure.
What's the situation like around me? If I put this raven down,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to, but if I put it down, what's the likelihood she'll stay relatively safe for the few seconds that I have next?
There really isn't much near the pillars. The actual action is happening outside of the pentagram.
Okay.
So if you just set down the raven next to the pillar, I mean, as far as you can tell, like you said, of course, it would be undefended. But there's nothing here to actually attack it. The vampire is on the other side. The ghost has gone to the back. So there's nothing that you can see that would directly threaten it.
Okay, here's a weird question. Maybe one of either Penton or Tix can answer this one. The protection from evil, that's on me and not my equipment, right?
It basically radiates around you for like a foot. A 1 foot radius around
I
you.
was just wondering if I took my pack off, put the raven in the pack, would the pack be protected while I went and did other things? But
No.
I guess not. Okay. Alright, I'm going to do that anyway. I'm going to take my pack off. I have some space aplenty. I'm going to gently lay the raven inside the pack and put the pack at the base of the pillar. hopefully I can do that as a free-ish standard action.
I will allow it.
And then I'm going to try to climb up the pillar with the spider, because I have an idea.
Okay. I would like you to make another climb roll, but I'll actually give you an extra +2 because you're familiar with these pillars and know them a little bit better.
Alright then. Alright, so the +2, that makes it a 9, and that's a 23.
Okay. And you shimmy on up that pillar.
And that's my turn, I think.
So now it would be the ghost's turn, but the ghost is just cowering in the back area. But now the vampire has recovered. The vampire has a high resistance against turning undead, and while you did take her out for a couple of turns, she has now recovered, and she hisses and flings herself from the pillar, completely uncaring about a normal human would break their ankles landing, but clearly this is not an issue for this vampire. As she lands on the ground, and she's actually charging at you, Tix, because she didn't really like being repulsed like that. And she is actually trying to grapple you. And she gets a 20. I'm guessing that is successful against your armor.
I have an 18 for armor, unfortunately.
Yes, well, she rolled very well, and she has a bonus. Now, the good news is that she did 4 points of damage. That could have been much worse, by the way. So you have taken 4 points of damage, Tix. The bad news is that you are now grappled by a vampire with her teeth extended. And that is, as you can imagine, not a good thing. And that actually brings us to the flesh golem, who is somewhat confused because there are so many different people attacking it, but it finally turns back to Morezi because Pinton's just too far away. And he turns back to Morezi and is trying to backhand you with his massive, mystically enhanced fist. And he gets a 15. I don't believe that succeeds against your armor, does it, Morezi?
Thankfully, it does not.
Yes, you do not want that big, wet hand slapping you across the face.
It's like a...
And that brings us to Pinton again.
Okay. Let's see. Well, that last attack was so effective, I'm going to try that again. So 2 more magic missiles head his way. See if we can't put this sucker down for good. Let's see, that's 6, 7, 8. And then +1 for my mark is 9. Ooh. And 11 on the boxcars. So that's 20 points.
20 points. So just so y'all know, by the way, that's a total of 46 points of damage. You light him up. You set him on fire, and he burns, and you think you do hear something to the effect of fire bad. And Morezi, you actually can see the expression on his face as he burns. And you think that maybe there's an expression of gratitude as his unnatural life is unknit. And he collapses to the ground and is finally allowed to die. And he falls to the ground in a smoking heap.
I'd say a prayer, but somebody's on top of me right now.
Yeah.
You're a little busy right now. But speaking of which, Tix, it is your turn. You can either choose to attack, or you can use your action to try to break free of her grapple.
I am going to attempt to turn undead again.
Okay.
And so that is a 17.
Ooh,
17.
nice.
Very nice. So what I'm going to say is that her fetid, rotting breath is just closing in on your neck as she's grappling you and about to sink her fangs into your neck. And you're not really free, but your somewhat free hand is able to just work its way upwards, and you hold your nugget right in front of her eyes. And the light, you actually see her skin begin to smoke because it's so close. And you say something to the effect of "the power of glitter gold compels you," and she just and slinks backwards. Now, you might have noticed, or probably in the middle of battle you didn't, that I haven't had Zuana do anything.
I was about to ask.
Yeah, yep.
I totally forgot about her.
Well, that's entirely reasonable in the middle of combat. But what I want to let you know is she was not idle. She was looking for an opportunity. I believe it's called an opportunity to backstab. And that's unfortunate. I was hoping this was going to be a cool moment for her. But she attempts, what you see is she steps out of the shadows, and she has her staff, her wooden staff, her druid staff, but the end is sharpened. You don't know when that happened, but it is. And she was trying to stab the vampire through the heart. And so what you think happens is that she wasn't expecting the vampire to get turned. She was going to use this opportunity of her grappling ticks to stab it through the heart. But since the vampire backed up quickly, she kind of gets like a glancing blow off, and the vampire hisses, but the vampire keeps moving backwards, compelled by the force of glitter gold. And that actually brings it to Osokai.
Okay, so Ozukai is on a pillar with a spider. Can't tell if the spider is dead or not, but bear with me, guys. Please let this work. I'm going to gingerly lay a hand on the spider's thorax, and I'm going to... This is so dumb. I'm going to reach out, and I'm going to connect again with Lolth, and I'm just going to whisper, we could use an ally. And I'm just going to go for it. With this beseech, I wish to be free. Once we have purified your shrine. And I am going to roll. Thank you so much. That's a 20. A natural 20.
Okay. Now, I was aware that you might try something like this, because obviously you had done something not unsimilar before. And
I warned you about it anyway.
And you warned me about it, that you might. So there is a very specific thing that happens. You see the spider twitch. Now, the spider is dead. It is absolutely dead. But the spider twitches. And you hear a voice. And the voice says, "Purify, cleanse, make my temple clean." And Zuana falls to the ground. And her mouth opens. And out of her mouth comes an avatar of Lolth.
Oh, this should be fun.
Avert your eyes.
And It is Lolth, but it is only a tiny aspect of her, because none of you could survive being in the direct presence of such a dark and evil god.
No.
In fact, both Pinton and Osokai, you benefit greatly from your protection from evil. What comes out of her mouth, and it just expands outwards, is a 10-foot tall spider with the body of a woman, of a beautiful drow woman.
A Drider. Oh, great.
Yeah. And also, its form is beginning to burn, is beginning to light a flame. And you hear it echoing the same thing it said to you in your mind, which is purify, cleanse, burn. And the heat from the flame begins to slowly expand outwards from this avatar. And anything that it touches is incinerated. By the way, especially to anyone who might be able to do something about it, Zuana is not dead. Because obviously, if a giant spider woman came out of her mouth, literally, she would instantly die. That would kill her. This is magic. But it didn't feel great. She has taken a great deal of damage, and she looks like she's in really bad shape. Like if you imagine someone who didn't know what they were doing tried to do the sword swallowing trick, that's basically what happened to her. Her throat is ravaged, and you can see blood spilling out from her throat. This creature is stepping forward, and it smashes one of the slabs. You can see underneath the slab there's actually a bowl, and the bowl actually corresponds in color to the flesh golem. It's like a unpleasant pink, and there's some kind of almost like a grain in it. And as it smashes down, you see the grain begin to burn, and everything near it begins to burn.
Okay. While this is happening, Osokai is going to. I'm going to hope he can do this anyway. He's going to jump down and retrieve the pack, because this avatar of Lolth's purification, as it were, is not going to do very well if the pack is on the floor. So I'm going to quickly put that back on, and I'm going to attempt to join the others and make it very clear that we should probably leave this church at least while the avatar of the Spider Queen does her job.
Okay. So, normal combat is no longer going to apply. What I'm going to do, since this very special case has occurred, is I'm actually going to go into a skill challenge. And we touched on this briefly with Penton and Morezi. But what it is I need each of you is going to have a turn to roll. And you are going to try to do an action. And this can be one of your skills. This can be an attack. It can be anything you want. But you need to get 5 successes. And if you get more than 2, so essentially if you get 3 failures, you fail the skill challenge. And that's going to be very bad. So you have a couple of things to consider. The vampire and ghost are still active in the church, but both of them have currently been repelled. But they're still active and may possibly be a threat. You have a giant avatar of Lolth who is beginning to burn everything nearby. You have a pack with a raven in it. You have 1 remaining living animal on the pillar, and that is a weakly struggling lizard. A very large lizard, by the way. All of these are large animals except for the raven. And Penton, you actually receive an empathic image from your raven, and it is the soil that you came in on. And so, what I would like all of you to do is I'd like you to roll a new initiative, and then we will begin the skill challenge based on who goes first.
Okay.
Okay.
I got a 13.
I got a 5.
Okay.
Ticks.
So, Morezi, you got a 13?
15.
15. Okay. And who got a 13?
That was Penton.
Penton. And please give me the others.
Ticks got a 5.
Ticks.
Osukai got a 17.
17. Okay, so first is Osokai. Now, what it is you can do an action. You can do any action you want, but if you repeat the action next time, I will give you a minus. You will have to roll disadvantage. So if you do an attack this time and you do an attack next time, I'm going to give you a disadvantage. But if you do a climb this time and an attack next time, what I want to hear is, what is this action doing to getting your party out alive? That's all that matters.
Okay. So, so I'm still on the pillar, or
Yes, I will say you are.
okay, okay. So, who is closest to my pack now that this has been established?
Technically, that would be Morezi is closest to the pack.
Okay. If I shout to Morezi, is that my action?
No.
Okay. I'm going to shout to Morezi if she could grab my pack. I'm going to assume she's going to be able to do that on her turn, but because I want... Where is the lizard?
The lizard is actually the pillar right next to yours. Theoretically, you could jump to it if you wanted to try.
That's what I'm going to do.
Okay. Then I would like you...
a bonus. I have a bonus to jump checks. Actually, no. Can I do this? I want to jump, but I don't want to land on the pillar. I want to jump enough to grab the spike, and using my weight as I go to the floor to yank it out, free the lizard. That way, I'm not on the pillar. I'm on the floor, and I can go from there.
Okay. Roll for that.
It's a 25.
Okay. So normally I describe this, but I would like you to describe what just happened.
So Osukai is perched on the pillar with the dead spider on it, and whoever is looking will see him sort of make himself smaller on the pillar, and then jump like a spider monkey from one pillar past the pillar with the lizard on it, his arm reaching out, grabbing hold of the spike through the lizard's tail, and as he falls to the floor, yanking that spike out and landing in hero pose. Let's go with that. Superhero landing.
Yes, that is a superhero landing that you come down, and this lizard that is it's much slimmer, but it's the size of a normal sized dog. It's not inconsiderable. It's perhaps a slightly smaller Komodo dragon sized lizard. It is in one of your arms as you wham land on the ground, and that is getting you closer to out because you weren't planning on leaving without the living animals.
No.
And so that actually brings us to Morezi.
Well, I guess that I'll grab that Raven Pack thing, and is there just kind of a door that we came out of, or did something happen? I can't remember.
You came through a completely normal door, and also Pinson may have gotten some kind of insight, though he hasn't had a chance to tell all of you about it. But Pinson also came literally through the floor at the other end.
You know, I feel like I should do something fancy since I haven't done anything yet. But I think what would just be most fitting of circumstances and character is to kind of do a hand gesture and make my way towards the door. I gotta do something that is a roll, don't I?
Yes. So you can roll to, say, if you want to roll to dodge this giant spider creature, that would be acceptable, or if you want to use one of your skills.
Not really sure what skills would be helpful here.
Do you have tumble?
I do.
Is that a? Then you could tumble. You could tumble past the pack and towards the door.
Yeah, I think I'll do that. Make a dexterity check. That wasn't really a roll. 18.
Oh,
That is a very good roll.
that is a very good roll.
Like
So
a
you-
backflip. With
Yes,
the raven.
you
Yes.
come streaking forward, snatch up the pack in mid run, and then you actually plant yourself against the pillar that it was next to, do a double backflip, and come down and start heading towards the door. And by the way, everyone, that is 2 successes that y'all have made, and that brings us to Penton.
Okay. Is there any like rubble strewn about? I know this has been a damaged place.
I will definitely say there is
Stone
rubble.
or anything like that.
If there wasn't rubble before, when she began smashing the slabs and everything, there is definitely rubble now.
Okay. What I would like to do is I took notice of the fact that the spider creature attacked the slab that they were on, and especially this mysterious bucket that was underneath it that was holding some sort of magical, I assume, liquid, which I would guess was some kind of controlling feature to the 3 of them or what have you. So what I'd like to do is grab a rock and chuck it at the bowl that was on the girl's slab and see if we can't free her from whatever is controlling her.
Okay,
Nice.
go ahead
Right.
and make that roll.
All right, so that's a +3 on ranged attacks. That'd be a 16 modified 19.
Nice. That will definitely succeed, and I do enjoy you using something other than your magics to succeed, and also using a reasonable assumption. You pick up a not small rock from the ground. When her giant pincer-like claw came down, just rocks sprayed everywhere.
Yes.
And the one where the abomination used to be, or the flesh golem used to be, is completely destroyed. But each one corresponds roughly in color to the creature. And in this case, it's a pale, whitish kind of gray color. It almost looks like a grain. You're not quite sure what it is, to be perfectly honest. But you hurl the rock, and it smashes the bowl underneath. And you see the stuff just go every which way. And you hear a low, oh. And you realize the ghost is actually behind you. Not like right behind you, but like it's been forced backwards by the force of the turn undead.
Right.
And it relaxes, and you see it just slowly fade away, and you sense the at peace as it finally is able to lay to rest. And you like that very much, and I definitely will count that towards a success. So that's 3 successes that y'all have made, and that brings us to Tix.
Well, goody gumdrops. I'm going to get up off my back where the vampire knocked me and run over to Zoana and cast Cure Wounds.
That is an excellent thing, and in fact, you're the only one who can do that, I believe.
I believe I am.
And she is in a very bad way. And you, as a healer, you know that if she's not dying, she's right at death's door, because her upper respiratory tract has just been ravaged.
Before we do that, how long ago was my medicine check, Zoana in the tunnel? Was that like a day ago? Or oh no, it was several weeks ago.
Yeah, it's been a while now.
Never mind. Yeah,
Yeah.
never mind. So there's no bonus to that. It's okay.
Gotcha.
I was
No,
just
no.
had it in my mind. Okay.
No, no problem. That's good thinking, but yes, it has been quite a while. So there is no roll necessary except for you to roll the heal.
Okay, and it's 1d8 plus my level, so 1d8 plus 3. And she gets a whole 7 points.
7 points. Well, that by no means returns her to full health, but what you hear is the characteristic of someone who suddenly could not breathe properly and who suddenly can. And she coughs and she spits out like big globs of black blood. But it's a good thing. It's a, I'm breathing again kind of thing. And she forces herself to stand up and is leaning heavily on her staff.
I'm glad you're up. It's time to go.
And she begins hobbling after you as best she can to try and get out. And so that is 4. There's actually 1 left that's required, and that brings us back to Osokai.
Okay, so I am currently on the floor with a lizard and a spike, which I am going to keep.
Okay.
And I am going to tuck and run. Actually, no. I'm going to shift, and then I'm going to run.
Okay.
That doesn't do a lot for my speed, but I'm trying to give myself as many benefits as I can at this point.
Understood. Now, I am going to require you to use some kind of skill or make some kind of roll. Now, the cure I was going to allow because that doesn't really require a roll. But it's still an action. But I need you to make some kind of roll that requires success or failure.
Okay. What have I got?
It can even be another action on top of running that you're doing to help, get everybody out.
I'm going to... So, Zuana is leaning on her staff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try and carry her. I'm going to try and scoop her, and I'm going to try and carry her.
Okay, then
I definitely have the... Yes, I definitely have the carry weight to do that, so...
Okay. Then I would like you to make a Constitution roll. If only you had some sort of bonus to your endurance.
If only. So I'm going to shift. So Osagai is going to get lowish, and hulk up a bit and look a little bit more like his patron animal, I suppose, with a lizard under his arm and a spike as well in one hand. We are going to bolt and try and scoop up Zuana and leg it for the door. So a Constitution save. That's a 17 plus 2. That's 18, 19. Is my check still in effect?
Yes.
Then that's a 21.
Okay. So you come barreling forward, you scoop up Zuana right off the ground, and she lets out like a startled, like, hey! But you all are you're hot-footing it towards the door. You all make it out of the temple and think about like an Indiana Jones type moment where you all make your way out, and then just this burst of flame lights forward. The only creature other than the avatar of Loth was the vampire, and you do not think that it survived this conflagration, especially because of vampires' feelings about fire. And the entire temple is cleansed by this unholy fire. And all of you take a few points of damage just from the ambient heat of the general temperature of the room. Just room lights up.
No, there's no such thing as a few points of damage for me, so...
Well, it's I'll say it's 2 points of damage for everyone.
Okay.
Very, very good point. It's not inconsiderable because you all feel it. I mean, you're all cooked a little bit by this explosion.
Toasty.
But then it's over. It's over. And you can make your way out. And
Before we do that, I'm going to put Zuana and the lizard down.
Mhm.
And I'm going to walk back in. I have unfinished business here.
Very well. You walk back in.
So I don't know what the others want to do. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to tell them not to follow me. And nod an apology at Zuana. I didn't actually expect Lolth to force a Drider out of her mouth. that wasn't exactly something I was banking on, but I have something to do inside here. So I am going to. Is the Avatar Drider gone? Did it explode itself and purge everything?
You cannot see it when first going in. There is absolutely no light now, though of course you do have low light vision.
Yeah.
But you cannot see it. If it was still there and 10 feet tall, you would see it.
Okay. I'm going to. There are doors to this place?
Well, there's a main door
Oops.
to the temple.
Is it working? That's what I'm asking.
Well, there's no door left. It's just an open hole.
It's just a doorway.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to go in. I'm going to go to the altar, and I'm going to sit. And I'm going to. Osukai is going to close his eyes, and he's going to find out if Lolth kept her promise.
Very
I would like
good.
to do a
Little
thing.
promise I got.
What's that, Marezi?
I would like to do a thing.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Morezi got a little peeved at the "don't follow me" thing, and I'm not sure if this would be a listen or a move silently check, but she'd like to eavesdrop on whatever's going on.
Okay.
Both.
Should I make 2 rolls then?
Yes.
Got a 12 and a 19. Not sure
Okay.
which is which.
Which one do you want to do to which?
I'm going to go with the move silently on 19 and the 12 on listen.
Okay. You
I think I get a
That'd be a
battle
spot
check. I basically try and match or beat her rolls if I'm trying to. At this point, I'm not going to do that because after all of this, I don't actually expect anyone to do that. But I'm just saying it like could be an opposed roll if
A contest?
I expected.
If anything,
someone-
maybe
yeah.
like you're a passive perception kind of thing.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to actually assume the best of my party and just do what's necessary. So,
okay.
And while that's going on, I'm going to use my last spell slot to heal Penton.
Okay.
Oh no, I stop him and tell him to heal the Raven instead.
Seriously?
Seriously.
I look at him a little strange, but okay.
You touch the raven and do how much healing?
9 points.
That completely restores the raven to health. She flaps her wings energetically and caws and lands on Penton's shoulder and kind of nuzzles your cheek, Penton. And
I sit down with a sigh of relief and wait for Osakai to do his business, whatever he's doing.
okay. And as Osakai goes in, not being one who likes to be told what to do, Morezi follows slightly behind. Morezi, you actually feel something crawl up your leg.
Marizi fights the urge to slap said leg and kind of just slides her hand down to try to figure out what's going on.
Okay. You actually feel the smooth skin of the lizard.
Hello,
And
friend.
it is crawling up you and gives like a blop and licks your outstretched arm. and then just crawls up your side and stays there.
Good.
Someone
And
got themselves a pet.
Good.
it does not seem to want to move. And but as you are listening, Osakai, say once again what you said.
Ozugai is going to kneel down on the altar and in sort of like a meditation pose, I suppose, on his knees, hands planted forward. And he's just going to, in very broken drow, I guess. No, he's going to do it in common. Lolth can understand common, she just doesn't give a shit. He's going to ask the ether, I suppose, if our deal is done.
You hear a voice, and it's very clear. It is not coming from the avatar, because that's gone. As you said, it burned itself up in a conflagration. But you hear a very clear voice in your head, and it says, I always keep my promises. You are free from my influence, but not from my service. And it says, and a gift. And you see the ground ahead of you begin to glow slightly. And you recognize it as the same type of ground that came from where the Zorn was, in the pit below the Inn of the Last Dragon. And you hear the voice again, and it says, I do this not out of... And the word is just horrible coming out of her quote-unquote mouth. Kindness. But because you are yet useful to me. You are free from my influence. But you will stop what is happening in the material plane. You will stop this influence. You will do this thing. And then she's gone. And that psychic scar that you felt in your brain is closed. She is no longer in your head. And you now have a permanent +1 versus mental attack, psionic attacks. And note that on your character sheet. However, you also have a -5 to any attacks, mental or similar, from a Loth-based attack. And the specifics of that we will get into another time. But if you would make note of both of those things.
So I have a -5 to any...
If Loth decides to attack you mental. Yes. Well, if any servant of Loth or Loth directly decides to attack you mentally, you have a -5. But for all normal psychic-based attacks, you have a permanent +1 because you have essentially gained a scar tissue on your psyche from this encounter with Loth.
Okay.
And also, the ground in front of you is glowing. What would you like to do?
I am free of her influence, but I am not free of her service. I'm going to investigate the ground.
Okay.
And see exactly what it is she has done out of command, I guess.
The ground is simply shifting slightly. You sense that if you stepped on it, it would probably take you somewhere else.
I'm going to do it.
Okay. You step onto the ground, and Merezi, you see this, by the way, and you slowly sink into the ground, and you are gone. Merezi, what would you like to do?
Well, that's pretty sick. So I'm gonna go and try to make sure that I can walk without that strange little lizard, or not little lizard, falling off of me. I'm gonna go to Tix and Penton and say, hey, you should check this out, and try to get him to come over to where Osokai just sank into the ground.
Okay. What is everyone going to do?
Well, I'm going to say, oh, well, my bird sent me an image of the dirt elevator. I'm not sure if she meant to stay away from it or to go into it.
Oh, your bird says, caw!
To go into it?
Caw!
I'm going to say that's a yes.
I could really use a nap and a beer.
Well, is everyone going to step on it?
I'm feeling strangely motivated. I'm going to say yes.
Let's do it.
Okay.
All right.
You all step on it, and you slowly sink down, and you slowly rise up, and you are inside the pit, below the end of the last dragon, and you just saved yourself probably 2 days worth of walking from the Underdark, which is not entirely free from peril, I should note. Also, and of course, Osokai is already there, and the chamber begins to collapse. You feel it shaking, and it begins to collapse.
Oh, I vacate the area.
Run for
I'm
it.
not going to make any of you make any rolls. As I said before, there's a slight incline on one side of the pit, so that you can climb out without too much difficulty. You make your way up and through the long stone staircase, out through the wooden door that tried to attack you. And just as y'all all make it through the wooden door, the chamber collapses, and the staircase collapses, and dirt and rocks spray outwards. And staring at you are the two dwarves. This is the dwarf Boris and his wife Nana. Their oldest child, Pinder, is also there. There are two others who were clearly in bed or something like that. And they're just staring at you all as you come hurtling through this chamber as it collapses. And Boris claps his hands and smiles, and he says, "Great! That means we can open the inn." Because that was his wife's complaint, was that there was a dark, evil lair below it. And you are all able to enjoy a beer or a beverage of your choice. And that ends episode number 16. I want to thank you all for this extended adventure and for surviving what could have gone very, very differently, I assure you, depending on the circumstances.
Yeah, little people like me shouldn't be dealing with squid faces.
Yes.
No.
Well, the good news is you might get an opportunity to do so in the future. But you all have
Maybe seeing it again.
Is that
Yeah.
a threat?
That's a bummer.
Yeah. You all
Although I
have...
haven't seen him at all, so.
That's right. You never actually saw him, so you're fine. Everybody have a wonderful evening, and we will talk to you soon.